Welcome to the Fantasy HQ podcast, all things NRL Fantasy. Find us on YouTube, Spotify, and Facebook. Your hosts, Frosty and Stevo. Welcome everyone to the Fantasy HQ podcast, all things NRL Fantasy. And today we're talking about rule changes that are going to change fantasy forever. Frosty, how's it going, mate? We had a game of cricket on Friday. I got a bit sunburnt, and you got a one run or something.
Steve, good to see you. Gee, I'd like to forget about that one. Dusted off the cricket bag out of the garage after about 3 years. Got the broom and cobwebs and dust went away, and rocked up. And yeah, all I did was catch a sunburn. So with my fantasy, any form of my cricketing skills at the moment, I'm in trouble, and it'll be a long season ahead. So fingers crossed, I'm upwards and onwards from here.
Pray for Frosty and his NRL Fantasy, eh?
Oh yes.
So yeah, we mentioned it, but as the title suggests, fantasy will change with a couple of rules that are coming into the game. So into the actual NRL rules, not fantasy. And I'll quickly run through those. Firstly, interchange rules. Teams may interchange 4 players up to 8 times per match from a squad of 6 players. And that's the key difference there. It's going from 4 to 6 on the bench. So you're going to have 19 players in a team. And secondly, restarting the tackle count. Certain infringements beyond the 20 metre line, the tackle count will restart. And previously that was at the 40 metre line. So there's a couple of big ones there that will affect how the games are played, and we'll quickly touch on those. But the other 2 rules there, trainer rules, trainers are restricting for entering the field of play. And there'll be more clearly defined circumstances. That will also give a little bit of a... that will affect your forwards in terms of water on the field, sort of getting that rest in between, getting those meters. And then the accidental breach, the zero tackle in goal, there'll be no 7 tackles set following a knock-on in goal from the attacking team. Again, that could affect maybe a couple of back hit-ups early. So there's a little bit to change there. I think, firstly, maybe, Frosty, if we tackle the tackle count, if you want to run us over how you think that will affect it now. So that's changing the reset from 20 metres out from your own line instead of 40.
Yeah, I think a couple of these, Steve, are going to be really sneaky and fly under the radar for fantasy coaches. But certainly this one and the knock-on and goal, which we may touch on soon, both I think will have underlying impacts. So it'll be interesting to see how this fantasy season plays out for coaches. With this tackle count, it used to be slow ruck or infringements inside your own 40, you got a penalty. Now that's only inside your team's 20. So if your team now gets a ruck infringement or an offside, say 25 metres out, that's just going to be restarting the tackle count. That means you'll go to 0, and we all know that 10, 20, 30 metres out from your own goal line, who's doing the work? Those workhorse outside backs. So I think the likes of your Brian Toto, Greg Marzius, a Cobbo if he's a wing, they're going to be picking up probably north of 30 to 40, maybe even 50 run meters a game purely from this. So that is certainly one to look out for. Last season and before, you would have got your penalty, you would have kicked down to somewhere around the 40 metre, 50 metre halfway line there, and you're straight into your forwards. So your forwards are probably going to lose 20 to 30 metres, 2 or 3 fantasy points a game, where the outside backs, your workhorses, would be picking those up. So for myself, someone like Brian Toto has instantly popped up on the radar because, again, fantasy small margins, and if he does benefit 2, 3, 4 points a game on average because of this, that is gold when it comes to that outside back field for the season.
Panthers are a prime example of that. You look at the way they play; it's quite often the first 3 tackles in a set is from the backs. And if you look at that now, if you give away an infringement, say 30 metres out, you probably get an extra couple. So the likes, even like Casey McLean and Tago and people like that, those centres as well, will maybe pick up an extra 15, 20, 30 metres maybe, just from those extra infringements. And in the same respect, some teams might be more keen to sort of push the limits and maybe go for a reset in terms of, trying to get away with one and putting a bit of pressure on inside that line and getting that mistake. So there might be more in general, because it's not a penalty. It's not a kick for 40 meters down the field. It is maybe one or two extra tackles.
Yeah.
So yeah, if they can rush the line and put or slow it down if they need the recovery. Yeah. What about the in goal? What about that for you?
Yeah, I think that again, instead of getting a 7 tackle set where you get further down the field, I think this one will impact the halves slightly. 7 tackles, you get a chance to get slightly down the field further. Now it's only been 6 tackles. Again, I think if you've got the field general type of halves, maybe a Sanders for the Raiders, who hasn't been on my radar much, but again with this, that extra 40 to 60 kicking meters, especially if you can notch 60, there's a point or two. Yeah, those field general halves, they may be a benefit for this one. So without teams getting further down the field, look for those main kickers to be picking up a point or two, I think.
Your main kickers, the likes of your Clearys, your Moses, those sort of players that are dominant with the boot.
Yeah.
But the big one, I think the one that's the most sort of changing of the game and how it's going to be a little bit playing it by ear when the season starts. But the interchange rule, I'll just go over again. Teams may interchange 4 players up to 8 times per match from a squad of 6 players. So instead of 17 in your team, it's now 19, but only 17 can be used. And I think that potentially changes when it comes to like HIAs. You've got if someone's ruled out, you've got that extra one up your sleeve or 2. So I mean, could it be backs that are going to be named like a half or a winger named as your 18 and 19 and they don't get a run unless there's an injury? Or how do you see it playing out, Frosty?
Yeah, big one, this one. So the teams are still getting their 8 interchanges, so that hasn't changed. But it's gone from 4 to 6 players. Now, within those 6 players, the teams can actually only still use 4 players. So if a back does go down, and say that sixth person on the bench this year is an outside back, and they get chucked on the field, and that's one of the first 3 subs, well, they're one of your 4 players. So all of a sudden, your 14th, 15th, 16th, or 17th, who are part of your main team and probably your main plans, they're scratched out practically for the game, and they won't be able to be used. So that's going to be the biggest one, especially if it's in around the middle of the game. If you've got starting props, and they're the big fantasy guns, having played their 25, 28 minutes, for that wee window of 30 minutes while they're on the bench, outside backs going down, that 5th or 6th player's then injected, all of a sudden, those 2 starting props who are usually getting back on for 20 minutes, 22 minutes each, they will be sharing that last 20 to 22 minutes. So pretty much halve their minutes. They might get 10, 11 each. One might get 15, the other 6 or 7. So that's the biggest one I would be concerned about for our starting props and our guns there in the mid. What about yourself, Stevo, with this major interchange rule? Anything else that's coming to mind?
Yeah, I'm just thinking, looking at like the Dragons as a sort of an example. It's looking like Farley could be sort of someone that is your 18th or 19th on the bench. And he's likely to be someone that I think won't get used week to week, but he might be in the squad. And it could be like a trap early season to people thinking, oh yeah, he's named in the team. He's surely going to come on and get, half a game. That's what people might expect. And without seeing it actually play out, I don't think he'll be that. I think he'll be, a DMP basically.
Yeah.
Unless there's an injury. I mean, if Valentine Holmes goes and gets KO'd in 15 minutes, then yeah, he might come on to centre and play 65 minutes, and that's, if you've got him in your team, that's okay. But yeah, depending who it is, I mean, it also puts a little bit more risk on. I know this is only trial, so we can't look too far into it. But someone like a Hamish Stewart, if he is starting on the bench, Where in seasons past he might have got 40, 50 minutes starting from coming off the bench, and if he's going a point per minute, that's 50 points. But if now they've got 4 forwards on the bench instead and 2 backs that they don't use, it might just split the minutes between those forwards, that all of them in general get 60 minutes rather than 70 minutes, or vice for the interchange players 30 minutes instead of 40 minutes. So yeah, I mean, it scares me a little bit. I'm not actually sure how it'll play out.
Yeah. Yeah, and Hamish Stewart's a good one. For fantasy coaches, we are trying to look for the starters, but Hamish Stewart's well owned, and I don't think there'd be too many coaches worried that if that was to be their round 1 team, sitting in behind Saleh, who's starting lock for the last trial. If that's to be their round 1 team, most coaches would still be confident of Stewart getting 47, 48 minutes off the bench. Like you said, he's point per minute there, proven it last year, and that's still 15 points of value. Now, however, with this rule, I would be advising coaches to be staying away from that, because it might only happen 2-3 times in a year. But if that's in the first 3 or 4 rounds when you're hoping he makes money, and he gets struck down to 15, 20 minutes, he scores a 15, 20, break even skyrockets, and he's working hard for 4 or 5 weeks, losing money before he starts gaining, and it pretty much chucks that whole plan out the window. So, be mindful of that.
It's certainly going to be one to watch, and it sort of makes it a little bit more interesting as well. One thing, just as like a supporter or someone that loves watching the game, nothing's worse than when you go get a genuine injury to a main player, whether it be a half early or a centre winger, and then all of a sudden you're having to play a forward out in the centres, and you're pushing your centre out to wing, and all of a sudden it just changes the dynamics of the game. So I actually don't mind it as a rule in terms of trying to even the game up for an even contest over 80 minutes. But yeah, it's going to be interesting how it plays out in terms of fantasy. It might be a little bit up in the air early until everyone's sort of used to how things work, and we see what coaches do with it.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the positive spin for fantasy can be, like you just mentioned there, years gone by, including last year, edge back rowers got killed by that, didn't they? Dylan Lucas of the Knights comes to mind, and there's certainly a couple others. Bo Fermor at the Titans. They were first on the list. Any outside back injury, out to the centre they go. If that's in the first half, they're on 18, 20 points, and they score 5 for the rest of the game. And again, we spoke about that before. It skyrockets their break even. They're pretty much done and dusted. And that's the big positive, is that should happen no more. So your gun edges, they should get to stay there. If they're 80-minute edges, you're much more confident this year that they'll be the 80-minute edge that you envision.
You can't underestimate that enough. Like Fermor, Lucas, those sort of players, Tallis Duncan, Kurt Capewell for the Warriors, those sort of guys that are instantly the one that moves, and that's always the risk. Even in years gone by, like your Cook, back when he was playing at the Bunnies, or even for the Dragons, if there's an injury, he moves to centre, and it's just, you're done and dusted there. He's lucky if he gets a 30 if he plays a full game at centre. So yeah, I think that is one big positive, and I look forward to it, and we'll have to keep an eye on it and maybe give an update closer to the time when we sort of know a little bit more, or after round 1 we can have another discussion about it.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Right, thanks Frosty. Thanks everyone for watching. And if you've stayed this long, let us know in the comments what you think will be the outcome of this, if it's going to affect fantasy much, or if it genuinely has changed fantasy forever. And while you're at it, check the description and follow our overall league on the fantasy app. And if you're kind enough, give us a subscribe. I'll catch you later. Thanks, Frosty.
Thanks, mate.